and we're about to start with a Q&A with John O'Shea, the chairman of Cyios Corp. John, how are you doing today?
I'm well. It's early morning here in Melbourne, so we've got a beautiful day, had a beautiful week. So it's a good start to the day, and thank you for inviting us to have a chat to your followers.
Thank you. What time is it there right now?
It's 8:30 a.m, so not that early.
Perfect.
Normally at the gym at this hour, so but I'll go afterwards.
Well, at least you'll have something to be pumped up about before you get there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody, I think let's go ahead and begin. So far, we've already got almost 50 people in the room, and thank you guys for sharing this. Thank you for helping build the community of OTC Stock Talk, where if you're a new trader or if you're looking for really good due diligence, there's nothing like hearing it directly from the company. So let's get into it. John, I'm really happy to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us from all the way across the world. For those of us that are new to the Cyios story, John, could you give us some background on yourself and how you became involved with the company?
So my background, I've been in financial services for a whole lifetime. I've built 3 businesses up and sold those to multinationals. Had an opportunity to buy Cyios when it was quite dormant, and from that we've been really looking at different alternative businesses to put into CYIO. The major one that we have had some great success on, although the market's converted against us at the moment, but it's coming back, which is really exciting. That was Helio Lending, and we were the first crypto lender in Australia. We built that business from scratch, and it went really, really well. And then all of a sudden the markets turned, and unfortunately all of the crypto lenders in the space all went broke because they over leveraged their clients. Interestingly, none of our clients lost any money. And the reason being is that we'd set up a hedge situation for our clients. We're a put and call. So when the markets fell, they actually started making money. So that's been a really positive area. Currently, the crypto market is now on a rerun. People may or may not be aware that there's a halving happening. And so naturally, before a halving, the crypto will spike. It will then come off again. Then we're going to start entering the market again because it's a lot more solid. It's not as bumpy. So Helio will be re-engaged, I would say, probably towards the end of next month, once it all settles down after the halving. We've now also worked in the NFT space. We have a platform, an NFT platform, which we're looking for partners to develop that up at the moment. We've got a number of exciting opportunities in that space, both in the gaming and also the carbon offset market. And then we've got CarbonCred, which is probably one of the key things we want to talk about today with the carbon market and what's happening in that space, which I think's, a really exciting long-term government-supported, industry-supported, and more importantly, community-supported space that is just going to be going leaps and bounds over the next, 5 to 10 years.
It's not just government support. It's supported in many different countries. I mean, this is something everybody has heard. Maybe very few people originally paid attention to it, unless you live in California and love your love your solar and wind and all of the renewable energy resources they're trying to push so hard. This is, I think what do they call it? The wind's with you at your back right now, as far as the company goes, and you're getting ahead of the wave here. Can you explain to us, just so everybody has a foundation, what the current state of the carbon offset market is and how business typically purchases through an exchange?
Okay, interesting question. Look, the market is absolutely growing exponentially. And why I say that is it's almost like a perfect storm. You've got government that are regulating carbon as a resource that businesses must take up. And even today, the SEC are now regulating and voting on making it mandatory for all listed companies to report their carbon reduction policies. So you got government, you got industry, and the community really like this space. But what's actually happening is that those funds that are going towards these projects are improving on the usability or viability of certain industries. The difference between carbon offsets and carbon credits is probably important that I recognise that to start with. The difference there is a carbon credit is an authorised product that is then exchange traded. A carbon offset is more of a voluntary market where it still can be authorised by Vera and Gold Standard and has to go through the same rigorous compliance that a carbon credit would do, but it's not exchange traded. So it's traded individually or by the corporation. And so we have a number of those projects all verified that we have in our parcel of carbon projects, and they're from all over the world. Now, how that works is it's also important. You can't just have a block of land and say, hey, I want to be able to do a carbon offset project. You have to actually be improving it. So you either have to plant new trees, you have to get better soil, you have to do solar. So it all has to be on an improvement situation. It can't be on what's already in existence. And so that's why investments going into these are good, because it actually gives more assets to be able to do more innovative types of things to reduce the carbon footprint that we all have.
That's a lot. So basically, you can't just go purchase land that already has solar on it and say that you're doing an offset project. You have to also upgrade or improve that land in order to be able to take part in this, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you have to be an improver. If you have a look at something like Elon Musk's business, I think 25% of his profit is come from carbon credits. Now, the way that, if we could take that as an example, if you build a petrol car, then you're actually adding to pollution. If you're building an electric car, the difference between the emissions from a petrol car to an electric car, that is your carbon credit. That's the bit that you've improved for the community. That's what he then goes and sells, and naturally he's selling it back to the petrol manufacturing cars, which is interesting. So
he's making carbon credits with every Tesla that he produces then.
Yeah, that's right. And so he makes more money off the credit than he does off the car. So
wow.
It's an interesting model. So, we have shellfish, which is a massive industry for it, seaweed, natural forests, which are being closed off so that there's no more harvesting or farming being done there. Farmers are now turning their fire breaks into plantations to get carbon credits. It's really going a long, long way, both with education, investment, and improvement. The problem is there's not enough projects. So if you took the top 5 polluters today in the world, there wouldn't be enough projects today to actually sustain them to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is the target. So there needs to be a lot more.
I don't think there was enough being done to explain this offset premise to people. This is exciting.
Oh, it's very exciting. So I call it the perfect storm. You've got government that are regulating it, you've got the community that like it, and you've got industry that have to do it. And so you'll find that people will start buying products that are only from businesses that are doing the right thing environmentally. Whether that's travel, whether that's food, whether that's clothing, whatever it is, that's where people will start putting their money. And then the other thing is the banks and the financial institutions will stop lending to those businesses that aren't doing the right thing because it affects their business. So banks are going to become a lot more rigorous on where their funds are going to corporations that aren't doing the right thing.
Wow.
Compared to, and it's already showing up. Businesses having to show their carbon footprint in their financial statements, which then the banks are looking at.
That's really going to shift a lot of things in a quick hurry.
A massive hurry. it's also one of the things that we've been able to do is look at it and go, well, how do we make it simpler? How do we make it so that it's not overly complicated? So when I looked at the industry and for myself and said, well, I really don't know how much output my electricity bill's costing me. I really don't know how much my business is costing me and so forth. So what we did was we averaged that across the whole industry, and we've broken it up into very, very small bite-sized bits so that if you're an employer with 5 staff or 10 staff or 15 staff, we've given you an average costing. And then instead of saying that you have to pay that in a yearly amount, we're allowing our clients to pay that on a monthly basis, because things change. You might increase your employee base, you might, reduce your employer base. So if you've paid for it all up front, then you may be overpaying or underpaying. So we've both done that for both individuals and for corporates. So, but our main focus at the moment is probably corporates, because there's such a demand for it. And it's finding somebody that's reliable, trustworthy, and is doing the right thing, and that those funds are then going to carbon projects which are verified. So all our projects are verified. And look, like any new industry, sometimes there's bad actors, and I think even BlackRock got caught out. BlackRock was in the paper about putting hundreds of millions of dollars into projects that weren't verified, and the money was just going nowhere. But that's going to get a lot better. There's going to be a lot more regulated. But our projects are all verified. That means that they've gone through a very, very rigorous, independent evaluation of their viability.
That's exciting. Now, you've discussed and given a good example and understanding of what carbon credits are. I want to know, you mentioned carbon offsets are different than carbon credits. So what are verified carbon offsets, and what type are offered on CarbonCred's platform?
Okay, so the difference is that they're voluntary, so that they're still going through the same rigorous component, but we don't have them on an exchange. So the variation on the price, like shares, can be on supply and demand. The carbon offset is really set, and it's a fixed price. We have a number of really exciting projects that are already in the system. We have a solar project in India. We have a rainforest in Indonesia. We have some planting trees in Australia. We're now also in discussions with some US companies that are doing some really exciting stuff in capping old mines. We've been in discussion with some groups globally in regards to hemp and what the capability is there, because that's a really, really good carbon absorber, and it grows 2 or 3 times a year. So we're always exploring other projects, but all our projects have to be verified. So we won't take a project unless it's gone through that rigorous compliance regulation, which is very onerous and quite expensive. I think the minimum cost to do that is about $500,000. So you've got to really have a good project to have us supporting it and promoting it.
From my understanding, hemp, not only does it grow and you can harvest it three times a year, but there's so many products that can be produced from it. I mean, there's CBDs and nutraceuticals, but there's also textiles, there's fabrics, there's a ton of things that come from hemp that can be used to generate money and offset the carbon going into the atmosphere. That's right. A really...
And it's probably, if you look at these different products, and I guess, the go-to one is, planting trees. But planting trees is probably the weakest of all of it. One, it takes probably 10 years for the tree to get to a point where it's actually absorbing really good quality carbon. It then is very, very slow. It's actually a very slow absorber. And then also it does break down over time, or if there's a bushfire, that carbon then gets re-released. So when you look at other plants such as marijuana or seaweed or shellfish, they have 8 to 10 times more carbon absorption power than what a tree does. And so this is where the industry's going. It's going into these more exotic industries that get better benefits in regards to their absorption, and then the end going use of what they can do with it and how it's stored, which I think is really exciting. But there's so many different ways that this is all being done across the planet, not only to absorb carbon, but to also improve our products. So the seaweed, for an example, then gets turned into seaweed packaging, which then biodegrades over time. So it goes back into the soil and doesn't release any of that carbon. So really interesting stuff that's happening out there. It's really exciting, but at the same time, there's not enough product. So that means supply and demand. We're in a really good spot because we've got product, we've got clients that are after that product, and then we're building an annuity stream, which means that our revenue is built up month by month, and we continually, once we've made a sale to a corporate, we get paid, but we then get paid monthly.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's all because once you've made the sale, unless the client, no longer wants to be environmentally sound, then you've got that client for a lifetime.
Well, the way they're pushing everything, I doubt anybody's going to want to say, I just want to be environmentally unsound moving forward, because there's so many drawbacks from financing to banking to everything. There's no way people will want to do that.
No. And you can see even today, you go to the ATM and they're saying, that we're carbon neutral now. You look on packaging, they're stating that they're carbon neutral. It's going to take a little bit of time before everyone trusts and believes that what's actually happening is real. But the exciting bit is this is an investment that's going into really good products. So whether you believe in the environment and whether you believe in carbon reduction, it doesn't really matter, because what's happening is we're improving our lifestyle, we're improving the way things are done, we're making better cars. There's a hydrogen car that's coming out at the moment, the Mercedes-Benz have done, that doesn't produce any carbon. It doesn't have any. So electric cars, you still have a carbon footprint because you have to build that product, and then you have to have energy to charge the product. Where with a hydrogen, you don't have any use of energy once the car's built. Very exciting opportunities. And this is being forced because people are having to be, think outside the square, because that's what industry's requiring, or that's what government and the community are requiring people to do now, to be more efficient, less carbon footprint, and more environmentally sound.
I remember when they tried to suppress, actually, well, they did. They killed the person that created it, the first hydrogen or water-powered car. And it was quite a long time ago, but the guy that made it was going to go to market with it, and somehow he mysteriously died. But I bet you they're shooting themselves in the foot on how much carbon they could have kept from entering the atmosphere and how much we could have averted if it had been allowed to hit the market back then.
Oh, look, and there's so much, you just type in who's died from giving away free energy. There's probably 15 of them. There's a video on it. Look, but not getting into that, but I think this is turning the corner now. I think even the large producers of carbon are now recognizing that they can't continue doing things that they've been doing and getting away with. But there's a lot of room to move. You've got, massive oil tankers that drive around the sea that produce just copious amounts of carbon, delivering our products and services. So we've got to get better. I know that the packaging, when you receive something in the packaging, you order something very small, it comes in a huge box. That's all got to get better. And once it gets better, then we're going to find that the planet will start regenerating and become a little bit healthier. But we just need to help it. And look at that. Some of the stuff that's coming out are so exciting. Some of the products that are being forced because of government are really, really positive.
Yes, it is. That makes me want to find out, just so we can clear things up for everybody listening. Can you simply state the difference between carbon offsets and carbon credits?
The very simplistic thing is carbon offsets are self-regulated by the people that design them. Carbon credits are regulated by a market, which is on an exchange. So the exchange can set the price and supply and demand. So they both do exactly the same thing, and they can be both verified, just that one goes onto an exchange, and that's the credit.
Okay. All right. Very well. why do you see this as a good business opportunity for CYIO to be investing in?
Oh, look, I think it's the future. If you look at businesses now and you look at their balance sheets from a year ago to this year to next year, you'll see that the investment weight going towards carbon neutrality is going to be massive. So we want to be a service provider to those businesses. You know, we're not going out and digging the gold out of the ground. We're selling them the shovels and the picks and the tents to go and do that. So we're the service provider to the industry that need these carbon projects. So we go and find those projects that are verified and then introduce those to businesses that may not know where to go to get them or what is verified and what is the difference between carbon offsets and a carbon credit. We do that and keep it really simple. And this is a market is growing exponentially. It's regulated that all businesses, large or small, by 2030 must be carbon neutral. Now, that means that they must go out and invest either in their business to improve their bottom line on how they manufacture or deliver or use the roads or do things to run their business, or they have to go and invest in projects that are doing that on their behalf. And I hope there's a mix between the two. I think businesses are going to come smarter at the way in which they do things. You know, they're going to turn their lights off when they leave the businesses. They're going to look at different ways that they can improve their printing or, use of raw materials. That's going to become more efficient because they're going to invest in it, but they're not going to all be able to actually do it internally. So you've got to then go out and look at alternative solutions to be able to do that. And that, I've got one of our clients is a printer, and he's now changing his whole business to be carbon neutral, allowing people to invest in projects to offset their printing. And
it's a completely different mindset.
It's a totally different mindset. And so he's at the pointy end, printing, cutting down trees, but he's saying, yeah, but we only buy our stock now from regenerated trees that are in plantations. We're not buying from any other species. We're doing, we're getting better at the way in which we print. It's electronic as much as we possibly can until the print job gets done. And then the client then can add to that in invoice around about 2 to 3% of the invoice, and then he will invest that into projects that will offset that carbon footprint on behalf of the client. And this is innovation. That's everyone wins in that situation.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I've looked at your website carefully, and just to try to understand carbon offsets, because I'm pretty sure everybody on this call has heard about carbon offsets, and there's too much going into the atmosphere. We got to find a way to reduce it. But I'm also just as sure that very few people on this call even have resources to be able to do that. Like, where would you go to learn? And that's one thing that I saw about CYIO that is the CarbonCred website specifically that's giving that opportunity. How is your business different from other businesses promoting carbon reduction programs?
Well, I think one of the things we've done is we've tried to make it a lot more simplistic. If you go on to most carbon offset businesses, they've got these things on there called calculators. And you really have to know your stuff to be able to get that calculator to work. So for you to be able to work out what your carbon footprint is very difficult. And so what I found when I was first looking at it, I got pushed away from it. It all became too hard, too complicated to go and have a look at this and look at that. So what we've done, and it's really interesting, if you think about, a couple living together with an electricity bill, which is massive in Australia, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, they're just gouging us like you wouldn't believe on the electricity cost, which is a massive carbon footprint, okay? So here's one of the biggest polluters, and they're charging us exorbitant fees to get our electricity. To offset that for an individual, a family of two, is around about $20 a month. So it's not overly complicated. It's $20 a month. A family of 4 or 5, it's sort of like $40 a month. Now, that doesn't mean that it's exact. That doesn't mean that we've taken into consideration, whether you drive an electric car or non-electric car. What we've done is we've done the average across the whole of the US or the whole of Australia. And so we've averaged that down. That means some people will be better. Like I, for an example, we have one car in our family and I ride a bike. But but I've also got 4 kids, so there's 6 in the family. So if I took the larger package, yes, sometimes I may be overpaying, but sometimes I may be underpaying, because if I go and do international travel, then that obviously is more expensive. But then you can offset those types of events with the airlines. And so it's just a matter of us getting enough education to say, hey, this is not overly difficult for me to be able to say at the next dinner party, hey, do you know what? I'm carbon neutral because I now contribute $40 a month to a rainforest project or to a solar panel project. And here's my certificate to say that I do that. And so that's where we've come from. Obviously, if individuals want to get a lot more specific, then we can do that as well. We have a consultancy arm that can come in, for an example, for businesses, and we can actually sit down and do your full carbon project. But that does take time, and you would only really want to do that if you're a very large organisation and you, for example, were a listed company or someone that really had to make sure that they were doing it 100% correctly, so that it could be verified for banks and stuff. But most small businesses, they're not going to be regulated to have to do it. They're doing it by choice. And because they're doing it by choice, that gives them a little bit more flexibility. But it also gives them the marketing power to be able to go out to their clients and their suppliers to say, hey, we're carbon neutral. What about you doing the same thing? So that's one of the things that's also going to happen here is the businesses we speak to are then going to have to start speaking to their suppliers, because that supplier has to be also carbon neutral for them to become fully carbon neutral, if that makes sense.
Man, I'm wondering, because I sold for a while, I did financial formatting for companies. Well, I sold it anyways. And so when you're doing your financials, if you're fully reporting, now they have XBRL tagging that goes along with each individual line item in a financial document and all the tables. Of doing that would be it started out links be analyzed or compared individual line items. So if you're doing a search and you're a super techie nerd on what you're investing in, you could go and base your investment choices or criteria that you're looking for on each individual line item. I wonder if they're going to be able to, through the tagging, be able to check on the carbon credits, like what companies have the most offsets or are producing or have the most carbon credits in the financials themselves.
Oh, it's definitely going to go that way. Look, the SEC have come out and saying that they're asking all companies will have to disclose. They're voting on it like today. Now, the SEC come out and say that all reporting companies have to disclose their carbon footprint. It's massive. That just drives this business through the roof. So that type of regulation is just absolute music to my ears, because it just means supply and demand is going to grow and keep growing. Now, not everyone's going to come to the party to start with, and it's going to take some people a little bit of time, but they will eventually be forced to come to the party. The problem is by then, there's going to be very little projects for them to invest in, and the cost of doing it is going to be a bit like our electricity bill. It'll probably cost you, in some businesses, it's going to cost them more to offset their electricity bill than the actual electricity bill themselves, because there's not enough projects out there.
No, there's not. Well, and if people understood how they could turn their land into a project, for instance, they would. But there's not even enough information to educate people out there so far. So you're really getting ahead of the curve with this one.
Totally. And if you look at one of the other big markets is schools. They're massively looking at it at the moment. I've got a number of friends that are headmasters of schools, and they're so interested in this because they have to do it because they're a business, but they're also an educator. And so the kids are demanding this type of thing to be happening in their school. I was lucky enough, we had our kids go to the Green School, which is the most environmental school in the world. And one of the girls out of there in year 7 started the No Plastic Bags campaign around about 8 years ago.
Okay.
She started that in year 7. I thought it was crazy. That has now been adopted around the world. In Australia, you cannot get a plastic bag at all. It's just impossible. Okay, so that's sort of
That's
change
awesome.
is happening, and that's going to come from the education system, which is then going to come through the kids, which is then going to go to what they buy when they're out shopping with their parents. You can't buy that brand, mum, because they're environmentally damaging. Canola oil, all of this stuff's going to start changing. So that communication and the way in which we talk, the way in which we understand it is growing exponentially. And CYIO is sitting right in the sweet spot because we're selling the picks and shovels to those suppliers. We're not digging the gold. We're not doing the projects. We're not heavily invested. We are just marketing the products that are already verified. And we take a fee on doing so.
That leads us to a sweet spot, or at least I like to say. Can you explain the financial model? How's CYIO going to get a return on its investment with this?
So if you consider that what we are is really a marketing vehicle for this, so our overheads are very, very low. We can use electronic distribution and marketing. So we're marketing through that. We've got a lot of networks now with large corporations and groups that we can reach out to, which we're already doing, and we already have clients. They then pay a monthly fee. And out of that monthly fee, we take a percentage of that fee every month as a management fee. We can also take direct consultancy fees. So if large organisations wish us to come in and do a review of their business, then we take a direct consultancy fee, which is different. Plus, we will then take a fee on any of the carbon offsets that they take. So what we're really doing here is I'm building an annuity business. So the fee varies between 15 to 20% commission on the monthly amount that's being paid.
Okay.
But we get that every month. So in month 1, we get X dollars. In month 2, we get X dollars plus the new month's sales, and so on and so on. So over time, we'll be able to sit back and go, well, okay, next year we already know that we're going to book X dollars because we've been doing it for the last year. Less a little bit of slippage, but then then we're going to add to that and continue to add to that. And that's what I think is really exciting. So we make one sale, we're going to get paid indefinitely.
Billy, because it's been great. Was with regard to an individual. So I'm an individual. I can go to CarbonCred and purchase offsets for myself. Why do I do it?
Really interesting point. And I think that's where we're going to have to get to for individuals. Why should I worry about my carbon footprint? I don't do much. I'm not making it. Look at this. Look at Coca-Cola or these companies. They're polluting the world or an energy. Why would my little bit make a difference? And I think that's really important that we start to recognise that your individual little bit does add up, because if we all start doing it, it's going to add up exponentially. Not only is it good for the environment, even though that you may be doing the right thing at home and like ourselves, we've got one car down from 2 and I ride a bike and I catch public transport, you still have a carbon footprint. You still wear clothes, you still eat food, you still turn on the electricity. You still use or produce carbon. So if you could do $20 or $40 a month, it's not a big, we're talking about Netflix subscription. And yet you can then say, hey, I'm carbon neutral, I'm doing the right thing. Doesn't mean then you increase your pollution because you're offsetting it. It just means that now you have a capability of saying, hey, to your peers or to your colleagues or to your friends or in a social environment, do you know how easy it is to offset your carbon footprint? That's where we're trying to get to for the individuals. Companies obviously are being forced to do it. So that little cost, $40 a month or $20 a month, means that your family then, when they're turning on the electricity, showering, whatever, is then carbon neutral. That's a really positive thing for you to be able to feel that you're doing the right thing, but also
implement back to your kids that this is a simple thing, and it's not overly expensive. We're not doing it. That's the message we've got to get out. And as part of this group, what we'd like to do is offer a discount to your membership to get in, so that our fee, we won't take our fee, we'll make it neutral for us. So if your members want to join, then we'll give them a 20% discount, so that there's no fee to CYIO, but we're doing the right thing by the community, and we're doing the right thing by your network. So we'll set that up, and you guys can pass that code out once that's been set up. And that's part of our education. So one thing's education, one thing's doing the right thing for the planet, and the second is then obviously revenue and how CYIO is going to maximize this over the long term. And I can't say it enough. This is a perfect storm. This is, it's regulated, industries have to do it, community wants to do it, and it's good for the planet. So there's really no losers in this.
That's awesome. That really is amazing to know that families. I have 5 kids and 4 vehicles, and none of them are electric. And I think that now that I'm understanding finally and getting a full explanation, my family and I are going to be going to your site and finding out how we can be carbon neutral.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for explaining this.
Not only that, you then become part of the network where you're educated. We send newsletters, updates. Each month it comes out of your account. You get an invoice to say this is the project that you're investing in. You might want to change, the kids might say, well, I want to do the solar, I want to do planting the trees, and they become a part of it, and they've got some ownership to it. So they don't have to feel as guilty driving their vehicles, because they are doing something. And then they might recognize, hey, maybe I do walk to the station today and not drive the car. And we all start doing it. It's going to make it for a better planet, and better development of other products. And some of the products are really exciting that are coming out.
Now, from a projection... go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead, man.
So from a projection standpoint, I mean, we've seen, Cyios, it's kind of, pre-growth. And on the last, income statement, we're kind of just at the launch pad here. Do you have any idea of what you're looking forward to in the coming year or 2 years in terms of revenue growth and guidance?
Look, it's always difficult to put a fingerprint on that at the moment, because it is, as you said, we're in this early stage. We do have growth projections, which we're working on at the moment, which once we feel comfortable, we can probably share those. It's really about that take-up rate that we're looking at, both from the corporations and the individuals. In regards to them, we're also adding to that. So don't think of Cyios as just carbon credits. We're going to be relaunching the Helio lending shortly, once the market calms down. We're in discussions with a number of lenders that survived the carnage. We'll be making sure that we do that in a responsible manner, like I've done in the past, and none of our clients will lose money. We won't get them to over leverage. We will educate them on that. So that's a space. We also have the NFT platform, which at the moment we're in discussions, and give you an example how that could work into carbon credits. We could actually NFT a carbon credit so that it's actually verified and that you actually get an NFT. So you would actually then get something which you could be able to then hold, which has an intrinsic value. And that would then lock it up and make sure that you would know that 100% that carbon offset or carbon credit was verified and regulated and done all the right things, because it'd be locked into an NFT. So that's a really exciting opportunity. And I will mention, just in this group, we're in discussions at the moment with a large group in the UK, where they're looking at doing some stuff with affordable housing. We haven't finalised anything there yet, but that's going to be a massive opportunity. And David and my role continually is to look at different projects and businesses that are in the market that are producing revenue or about to produce revenue and are looking to ways to raise capital. So we are doing that at the moment, and we're also looking at exploring other opportunities within the group on how the company can raise some capital to expand into different markets, whether that's a Reg A. But the number one thing that I really want to make everyone aware of, this is not a business that I'm looking at to promote in the short term to just get the share price up. I like a longer term play. I've been holding on to this business for a long time. We now have a number of projects that are really exciting. I am a major shareholder, and I'm not going to decrease the value by getting short-term wins. So it is something that I'm really conscious of, and we want to do it right. And I want it to be here in the next 5 years as a really, really forward-thinking, revenue-producing and shareholder value business that people will recognise and go, wow, that was forward-thinking crypto, NFT, carbon offsets.
I think that leads us to a perfect spot here. Now, I hope everybody on here right now understands a lot more about carbon offsets and carbon credits and how you can be involved in that individually. Now, you mentioned there might be a special offer for the members or people that would be on this call or that will hear this later. Can you share a little bit about that or elaborate on what you mean?
Well, what we'll do is that we'll take our fee, which is the 20%. We'll reduce that. We'll make that zero for your members. So they get a 20% discount. We'll send out a code. So when they come on and decide that they want to do a monthly subscription, whichever level they want, that would be reduced by 20% for your members indefinitely. So we would keep that on. So for the rest of the time as an early start. The reason we do that is because it's going to educate a whole lot more clients. They're going to talk about it. They're going to spread the word. And so that's really an opportunity of us really making sure that we're all doing the right thing and going in the right direction.
So where would they go to get this discount?
We'll give the discount to you, and then you can distribute it to your member base. So we'll give you that code. And I think Michael's on the call, who's looking after our marketing initiatives and social media. But we'll get that out to you, and it'll be specifically for your members and your base. So whoever you want to send that out to.
Okay. Yeah, I see Michael on here. Michael, down on the bottom right of the screen, there's a chat bubble. If you click on that, it'll open up a spot for you to put a tweet out, and you can tweet a discount code right here in this link. And afterwards, I'll also share the replay of this Q&A with the discount code attached, and we'll get that out to people so that they'll have a chance to get involved in this carbon offset and carbon credit investment opportunity. Now, what's the marketing plans behind CarbonCred?
So I'm not sure if Michael's got speaking capabilities on this, but we've engaged with his company, which is a really exciting organisation, very skillful in the social media, website development, but also Michael brings with him a breadth of knowledge. He's been in this space before, which I think is really exciting. He's worked with a number of projects globally in the carbon offset market. So he comes with knowledge. So the real focus is going to be through networks that we've established, social media, SEO, education, and then networking through businesses. And so we've got a large database of businesses, which Michael's only just finished the website, I think, in the last week or so. So it's now time for us to hit the road running. And so that's the way we're going to be doing that. So probably 5 or 6 different market segments we're going to be targeting. So to really get the word out there and to get the revenue in the door.
Michael Scarron 33, if that's the person you're talking about, I believe so. If you would, I sent you an invite to speak. Just click the bottom left corner where that microphone is, touch that microphone, and it should accept the invite so you can come up to talk for a minute. And also, for everybody listening, in the chat bubble attached to this, they have put a link for CarbonCred's website. So if you go there, right now, you'll see the Intent Sciences 13 minutes ago posted a tweet that says carbon offset plans available for businesses and individuals, and has a link directly to carboncred.io. How are you
Hello,
doing?
thanks for having us
How's it
on.
going?
I'm good. Yeah, I've been following along. It's been a pretty good chat with you guys. Just to kind of echo on what John was discussing, we've are definitely focused on helping to grow the brand online through pretty extensive media coverage and PR. A lot of my background over the last 20 some years has been specifically focused on brand building and SEO. Previously, I'd spent a good decade or so in the heart of Silicon Valley, San Francisco, working with dozens of startups from very adolescent stages that we've grown some small to large marketplaces and B2B companies from zero revenue generation into 9-figure brands within under 24 months. Some had some pretty large exits. And I've known the space pretty well. I in the past had teamed up with some world-class Berkeley engineers, and we were building a renewable energy credits trading platform, essentially. So you could buy solar or wind RECs. We were going to keep these stored on a blockchain, and where businesses or consumers could essentially buy and sell them, and kind of like if you're using an E-Trade or something. That project never really took off due to one of the issues with one of the founders, and it kind of became toxic. But I do know the space pretty well, and that's what prompted me to actually personally invest in Cyios over the years, and was able to connect with John and the CEO David as well, and see a huge opportunity. The market is just carbon credits, and the offsets market globally is in, I think, around 420 billion as of last year, and with a projected CAGR of like 36%. And within the next 4 to 5 years, it'll be essentially like a $1.4 trillion market cap globally. But when you look at the voluntary carbon offsets markets, that's in the billions range now. I think it was 2 to 3 billion just last year, but it's expected to grow to around 40 billion by 2030. And I think that's more of the segment we're going to be targeting the most, with forward-thinking individuals and businesses around the U.S. and world that would be most apt to engage with a carbon cred. And in addition, we're pretty well connected with a lot of very forward-thinking CEOs and climate tech startups that have dozens of portfolio companies specifically focused on climate initiatives. Still have a very good network throughout California and the Bay Area, where I was located for a long time, and just our personal contacts between myself and John and David and other teams. There's a growing engagement around the brand, and now that we've launched a pretty polished up new website, I hope you guys like it and will engage with it. But now we're in the phase 2 of growth, where we're going to be really working on upping our SEO results and visibility online for people actively looking for carbon offsets or carbon credits or ways to reduce their carbon emissions. If you were to go to the footer, there's a tab for resources, and there's a lot of content on the site that's pretty educational about the terminology. I recall hearing, what's the difference between carbon offsets and carbon credits several times. There's actually an article about that differentiates the both of those. And we'll be adding more content around just the markets, around anything around oil and gas capping to methane capture. And aside from those, I know John's been pretty busy about bringing in more like biodiversity projects to methane capture, solar projects, wind, biomass. I think there's a big play that we can get engaged with cannabis and hemp farmers to work with them to offer carbon offsets to the marketplace, where we'd be able to sell those as well to the business and consumer markets that are obviously the appetite's there. It's growing a lot. And I like, just to echo on John, it's essentially a perfect storm. And I think a lot of this is coming together, but there's still an element where a lot of the business and consumer public is still looking for some more education around this. And there's still, questions. Is this a carbon tax? Is this government regulated? This is essentially very voluntary. And if yourselves, your business, were to purchase carbon offsets through CarbonCred, businesses can receive an actual tax deduction. So it'll offset your taxes. Individuals aren't so much apt to that, or families, but if you do have a small family or a few kids, we built out into the system, so there are specific plans based on the type of emissions you might emit. Is it, it's averaged out? Is it absolutely perfect? Maybe not yet. I think we'll get there, but the big thing that we've been working on and spend a lot of time with John on is to really make this painlessly easy for people, and just simplify this entire process. So will you offset over 100% of your carbon emissions every month? Maybe, maybe not, but it's kind of averaged out over time. And if you are more of an emitter and you're traveling longer distances to work in your car, or maybe you're a sales rep and you have to travel around the US once a month, or you have international travel, you might take an individual plan, but do the medium footprint plan, or the larger one that would help you offset more of the carbon emissions that you're emitting each month, which overall lowers your carbon footprint. But
So what I was hearing you say earlier is that you're really looking to educate people so they can see why they would have a need to do that, and then provide them the resource of a place where they can offset their carbon through purchasing or buying into credits or investing into carbon offset programs,
yeah,
right?
so I think the way to look at it too, I've got, I've talked with some friends of mine that own, are very successful business owners, but they're on the road a lot, and they play like a devil's advocate. Well, why don't I just, I can support these offset projects and purchasing carbon offsets, but why don't I just donate to a nonprofit? And in my previous life, I've built two of the largest crowdfunding platforms in the world, where we grew them to generating hundreds of thousands of fundraisers. We were the platforms of choice for Habitat for Humanity, Teach for America. We ran several presidential campaigns, half the Congress, that we generated over $700 million in donation revenue. And I was led the marketing, where I was in charge of basically bridging the gap between people that want to donate and also generating all the people looking to start up fundraisers. But with this, I said, a lot of these larger nonprofits, like a United Way or Red Cross, for example, typically, if you were to donate $100 to them, about almost 95% of that donation just goes to their overhead, and very little actually gets passed on to
Correct. Yeah.
the social good projects. With this, you're making an immediate impact within minutes. There's really no thing to this. You can see the plans, pick what's best for you, put your payment info in, subscribe, and it's just auto payment subscription every month. Set it and forget it, but you'll have the if you're a business owner or work at a company, you'll get the tax benefits from it, but you're actually making a small investment into these carbon capture or removal or reduction projects that are actually generating material good for the world and society, but you get the tax benefits from it too. So, and plus it's, for these companies that have ESG and corporate sustainability initiatives, it's good for them. We're trying to engage with actually a very large public company with like a $3 billion market cap, but they have a huge ESG initiative, and they have a full-time VP that is specifically tasked with this. And just hearing the challenges and the complications of all what even John was echoing on earlier is the calculators. And I mean, there's literally full-time roles of teams and companies just to try to figure out how much they actually emit in carbon emissions, and then all this complex math that goes into it. So I've presented, I think CarbonCred is a very simple, painless solution that you can make.
Are you going to be able to do that calculation on CarbonCred's website?
You won't need to. That's why the what we've designed the system is we've just made an average from it, made all those calculations, and said basically we made all this complex math packaged into one simple solution. If you just have a flat fee per month based on if you're in a small footprint, a medium, or large, Also, if it's
So let me ask a specific question into that. So if you're getting a median average across the whole country, do you set the amount paid for each size on the high side so that it covers all the options?
a little bit. So I think if you get more to like the family plans that were available on the link I'd shared, you'll see like small footprint, medium, and large. Those are more for the consumer market, and that would basically, if you might travel a little bit to work and this and that. Single person, maybe you have a 1-2 bedroom apartment. That plan is probably best for you. If you're traveling more for work, longer distances, you might take the medium plan. If you're traveling on airlines around the country once a month or so, you'd probably want to opt for the large footprint plan, which is like $100 a month or so on 150. And that would be more in line with offsetting those individuals' carbon emissions on a monthly, pretty much average standard that we kind of calculated.
Yeah, I'm on the CarbonCred site right now looking at the family plan, and the median plan, 2 to 4 members, is between $100 and $200 a month. So that would be, if you're on the high side and have 4 members, you'd want to go with $200 a month. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, if you're averaging about $50 a month per person, essentially, would do a pretty good job of helping you reduce your carbon emissions on a monthly basis. And it's kind of averaged out. Is it absolutely perfect math to the ounce of carbon offsets? Probably not. But it's pretty close and it does a good job. But when you get to the individual plans, that's a little bit more calculated on. You might have 1 or 2 children, or you're driving a car every day, or fly a couple times a year. But essentially, like one carbon offset, or you're going to essentially offset 1 ton of emissions.
Well, the last
one
question.
more thing for you too. I think, John, when you got cut off earlier, when you were asking about like if there's a medium-sized business, let's say with 100 employees or so, and looking at revenue targets, essentially there's that plan on there that's 51 to about 100 some plus employees, 51 to 150 employees. So if you factored about $50 an employee, a plan like that would be about $5,000 a month. We look at $5,000 a month MRR, $60,000 a year ARR for one business, in top line revenue coming through with 15 to 20% take on that. And obviously that will our acquisition costs will minimize of bringing those people in on the first orders over time, and the revenue will just compound growth, ideally yearly. I anticipate we probably have minimal churn. It'll be tough to keep 100% retention based on a ton of different market factors. But 3 to 5% churn will probably be something we'd have to factor in. But we're looking to obviously expand our reach throughout the country and world, to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of different businesses being in front of them. Where ideally we'll just keep compounding that growth month over month with new subscribers, while reducing churn. And then I know some of the team has been talking to some very large companies, even specifically in the trucking industry, and logistics, where they have dozens of operators on the road every day, massive semis.
Well, don't get into that too much, because we're going to have, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're going to have some follow-up spaces where they're going to really get into those individual things yet. So I want to leave a cliffhanger here, because I'm really excited about where the company's going, and as we get closer to seeing actionable intel on those things, then we'll be able to have a space and bring it right to the people immediately, which is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of good movement going on. We're pretty excited about the near and long term future, and we're in it for the long game. I'm helping, so John mentioned that there's going to be a lot of short term wins I think we can achieve, but there's a big checkered flag that's out there. There's definitely a plan to hit that, and there's some very long term growth objectives where we plan on hitting. And I think we'll be having a pretty good cadence of some good news that we'll be able to share over the next several weeks and months too with you guys.
Awesome.
Okay, so guys, I know John had some technical difficulties. I just wanted to jump in at the end and talk about the acquisition strategy. So, we've talked a little bit about it. Since the beginning of the new year, we've been super busy. Since then, we've probably looked at probably more than a dozen deals. And, we're really looking for something special, one that can really create significant shareholder value immediately and over the long term. And, selfishly, both John and I have, we own a large percent of the company. So this is something near and dear to our heart. We, it's a priority of ours, and we're going to get it done. Will it be the deal that we have currently that we're close on? I don't know. I think so. John might have talked a little bit about it. It does have an AI technology component to it for a specific industry. It has real business, real revenues, real assets. And I don't want to mention like how big the market cap could be, but it's significantly bigger than what Cyios' current market cap is. So if we get it done, it'll be great for all shareholders. And people always say, well, are you going to dilute and raise money? I mean, if we do, it's going to be at significantly higher pricing. But in all reality, we may not have to do much capital raise to get this particular deal done because it's not going to require a lot. So I think net, I think all shareholders should be somewhat pleased where the company is. I think John's doing a great job with CarbonCred. Mike Balducci, our partner from Intent, he's doing fabulous also. And things are really just starting to go now. I mean, you guys probably saw the second article that came out on CarbonCred. There should be another one over the next week or so. And Mike is going to kick some butt and, get the word out on CarbonCred. And I think the priority for CarbonCred is awareness and education about how this platform and business model is different than some of the other ones. And that's pretty much it. I want to tell everybody, thanks so much for being patient and loyal. And it looks like we've turned the corner. So we're pretty happy from where we're sitting. But, the job's not done. That's all.